All right, welcome to New JFK show number 197. We will hit the double century mark here pretty soon. All right, we're going to do a little shill shooting tonight, as Don likes to say in his new redneck Austin accent. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. All right, so I've got some other things. We're going to be going super old school tonight. I found 3 issues in my mother's attic, and one's The Evolution of an Assassin. We also have,
I have that one. I have that one too.
yeah. And then we've got, John Connolly taking a closer look at the film that he's in. And we'll talk about that. And then I also found this one, believe it or not, all in one score. They've got, let's see.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got Lee in the doorway right there.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to actually spell it out what happened.
Which magazine is that?
This is Life magazine. They're all Life magazine.
Life actually got Lee in the doorway?
No. They just pointed it out, but they're calling him Billy Lovelady, but we all know it's Lee.
Yeah.
Anyone who'd ever seen Billy knew he was 2 or 3 inches too short, 15 to 20 pounds too heavy, and was wearing a red and white vertically striped short sleeve shirt.
And was pretty bald also.
Okay, here we go. Close examination. All right, wait, hold on. It says, speculation that Oswald could have not been the assassin was ignited by this discovery of the photograph in the far right. It showed the crowd, the book depository in the background, and Kennedy clutching his throat in the car at the instant he was shot. Close examination of an enlargement of the area in front of the depository showed a man who seemed to resemble Lee Oswald. If it indeed was he, then it would not have been possible for Oswald to have been firing from the window above.
Brilliant deduction.
The perfect alibi.
All right, now hold on.
These guys are rocket scientists.
The perfect alibi.
But a check of the depository workers revealed the man was not Oswald, but indeed Billy Lovelady, another employee. It's settled. We got it.
I'm ready to barf. Thank God Life settled it long ago. We've been chasing after a phantom.
Along with the backyard photos on the front.
All we have to do is read Life, Larry.
Yep.
Yeah, they were pushing it hard now. So I guess we know the story about Life magazine. And
they were a very impartial, fair.
That's
honest,
right. Objective, relentless, investigative organization.
Yes.
With the highest standards.
They got down to the bottom of all of these big issues.
All right. Okay, since we're on Life magazine, let me go ahead and do this little PSYOP piece real quick. All right, now we all know about the magazine with Lee, and it says right here, the case.
No, that's not Lee, that's Roscoe.
Yeah, but that's not what it says on the front page. It says Lee Oswald with the weapons he used to kill President Kennedy and Officer Tippit. And as Jim Garrison said, well, it's solved already. It's done.
Yeah, how objective? Right. How objective can they be?
That's right. Solving the case in a single manufactured photograph. Love it.
Absolutely. Let me move our hourglass out the way a little bit here. Okay. Now, in Life magazine, we have The Evolution of an Assassin. All right. So we're just going to flip one page. I want everyone to be aware of the PSYOP of the big letters at the top of each page. So you turn to the next page, and it says, Lee was the leader on the playground. All right. So then we move to the next one. It says, he didn't seem to miss having friends. So
consistent, being the leader on the playground and not having any friends?
Yeah, he didn't seem to miss having friends, though he was a leader. But then, all right, we turn to the very next page, and it says, he looked like he
was just lost.
He was just lost all the time, you know. So every time you turn the page, you know you have to read the big page. And just to show you where we are, they're advertising the most iconic hippie van in the world.
The van, the Volkswagen van.
Yeah, Volkswagen. You know it's an old magazine.
Hey, there's something subtle there, right?
Tell us, Larry, tell us.
Family show.
Well, you know, the Aryan.
German manufactured.
Hey.
Sounds like he should have been using a Mauser, Gary. Larry.
Could have been. Could have been. All right, so we go to the next page, and they inform us that Lee
Never came to squadron parties.
You know.
Well, that's a sure sign of an assassin.
Yeah, you can't make it to the
Oh, a
squadron.
lone nut assassin.
And automatically right there. Okay, then I'll let y'all read it. What we got next?
I am the commander, he barked at Marina. Right, of course.
I'm the commander. Okay, I'm just flipping pages.
Marina wondered if he was unbalanced. The FBI told her to say
killing me. All right, let's see if they continue on. Yes, they do.
on the rifle range, he was sort of yeah.
Boy, they just
He got Maggie's drawers all the time for completely missing the target.
Yeah.
What we got on the next page?
He poked a rifle out that window. Wow.
Wow, he poked it out there. I saw it. All right. So there you go. And then in the same magazine. Now tell me they weren't hitting it hard. Let's go to this one.
I bet you they got
it out like we were 6 years old.
I bet you they got little 15-year-old Amos Ewins as the main witness about the poking out the window.
Right out the window, right. Yeah.
Completely reliable witness.
Look at this picture here.
Well, one Larry rather than you, Gary, for some reason. Speak out. Speak out.
Was this man sane?
Was he sane? This man here. Look at that. Boy, they always take the worst picture. All right, so let me read just a paragraph here.
He looks like a psycho there, Gary.
The thoughts of a man who has committed a singular act of violence can only be guessed at, never known. The extraordinary picture of Jack Ruby was taken as he was leaving the jail for pretrial tests by doctors to examine the physical and mental condition of the man who shot Lee Harvey Oswald, whose own bizarre story can be told in remarkable detail beginning on page. So that's what they were saying. You know, I just showed you the remarkable detail that they talked about Lee. All right. As the hearings that preceded Jack Ruby's trial began late last week in Dallas, there was no possible doubt that he fired the bullet that ended Lee Oswald's life. Millions saw him do it on television, and this fact alone could make it difficult to find 12 jurors.
No possible doubt.
No, I know. Notice how they're reassuring.
Yeah.
Way back then. Yeah.
They're preempting even raising the question.
Yeah, the tone of the article is to reassure that it's Ruby doing the shooting in the basement.
That's right.
City Hall there.
Beyond any doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, it's coming from Life, the loose empire.
Well, I'm telling you, Life magazine was the one. And see, this was back in the days when you didn't have 1,000 magazines. There was NBC, ABC, CBS, PBS.
Yeah, it was all CIA.
All of it from the very beginning. Absolutely.
Yeah, but this was Josiah Thompson's work, right? They were featuring there.
Yeah, speaking of, let's do this real quick. Let me get the volume right.
In the meantime, I just wanted to say that I have a new angle that I spoke to Jim about on another entity that we need to add to the list of JFK enemies, and we'll talk about that later. I have a very
right. Good, Larry.
Got it. Here we go.
The last 30 years, I don't know how many murders I've done.
Oh.
Probably over 100.
Investigated, I think.
Investigated over. Yes, thank you. Right. Yeah.
It's a good clarification.
Right. Yeah, that's right. The more you investigate a crime, the more it becomes crystal clear what happened. I don't think any other crime that I know of in history has been investigated with the kind of intensity that this has. And yet, I don't think we get any closer to knowing what happened now than we were 40, 45 years ago. I've been thinking about November 22nd again. The phrase tectonic shift kept coming to me. And I kept thinking about December 7th, 1941.
Another hoax.
And about 9/11.
Oh,
Of course, 9/11, we're all there glued to our TV. But November 22nd was different. There was no why. Friday afternoon, the why is that there's some Marxist sympathizer nutcase in Dallas, of all places, who decided to shoot the president. And then Sunday, that nutcase is offed on national television. What was different about November 22nd and the tectonic shifts that occurred there was right from the beginning. We couldn't put a why answer on it. It seemed to be beyond that.
because we're talking about Hawaii.
This case has become so cliched, it seems to me. I mean, with conspiracy theories here, conspiracy theories there, etc. And what I'm struggling with is this. I know this happened one way rather than another. It had to happen one way, right? If you could get inside the photos, you would know what happened. There were...
Oh my God. Pause. Gary, pause, please.
I'm surprised you lasted this long. Go ahead, Larry.
Pause. Look where he's got Alchins.
Yeah.
It's so laughable. Alchins was right in the middle of the lane on the south lane of Elm Street.
You want to understand, when this first appeared, I did a column about it, entitled JFK, the CIA, and the New York Times, in which I blew them apart. I included this video and explained how he'd been setting himself up to disavow conspiracy theories for the 50th for some years in advance. I'd been calling him out on it when he disavowed his double hit theory. They had planned to do 50 of these little short interviews with Errol Harris. And I think they found the downside was so bad they abandoned it after this one. And I believe it was because of my article.
And Jim, I want to add that this 6 seconds in 6 seconds is total BS, because now we know by the Newcomb tapes that it was more like 20, 25, maybe even half a minute. You know, it wasn't 6 seconds on Elm Street or whatever.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, the book, of course, not only includes a double hit theory, obvious proof of conspiracy, because you can't have two shots in such a short interval of time from the same weapon, but the McClellan diagram, obviously proof of a shot from in front, and yet in the concluding paragraphs he said, nothing in this book proves there was a conspiracy. For which Vince Salandria called him out as an op almost immediately, Larry.
And I want to add to that Vince told me that, because Vince knew this guy from the old Philadelphia days, and this guy, there was a case where these guys got arrested in some kind of demonstration, and Salandria, being involved with the ACLU, went to defend these guys, and much to his surprise, that Tink Thompson was taken out sort of like the back door, wasn't even charged or anything, you know, as a probable agent provocateur. Okay, so there you go, and that was from Vince, who told me that personally.
Vince is a good man. Josiah Thompson is not.
Well, when you have music like this behind you, you just know. I mean, what does conspiracy psyop music sound like? Well, let's give it a listen.
Taking film, movie film, or still photos in Dealey Plaza that day. The film evidence actually makes it possible to lay out a reasonably precise scenario as to what happened. That's really the problem for the authorized account.
As they extricate time,
You want evidence that's authentic in the Kennedy assassination? I'll tell you where to find it. Go to the films and photos of Dealey Plaza, the most obvious place.
which are all altered.
All authentic because it authenticates itself.
I'm convinced he was involved at some point in this alteration
He
business.
said that all the photos were authentic, and it authenticates itself.
Beverly, even Beverly Brunson back in 1967, 68, said that all of the photographic evidence was altered, that you could not trust it, And we're talking about, late 60s.
Well, Josiah's most famous quote is the closest thing we had to absolute truth. This is a Zapruder film.
Yeah, and guess who?
Bob Groden will tell you that too.
Yeah, and guess who's also in that camp, Jim?
What, Don?
Bob Groden will tell you that the Zapruder film was a
Yeah,
thing.
we know.
So will Jim DiEugenio.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's an unholy trio.
Yeah, we call shill shooting, but like shooting in a barrel. All right, I got a couple more shills. You want any more about Tate Thompson?
You don't want to go through the whole thing. It's fascinating because he explains how there's an innocuous explanation for anything you think is sinister, and he uses the Umbrella Man as the example, claiming there was an innocent explanation. You got to watch this to believe it.
Yeah. All right, I tell you what, we'll go back to that if we have a little time. All right, so we're going to go to the next shill. And let me turn up the volume so everyone can make sure they hear it all.
Gary's on the warpath tonight.
I'm pissed.
So some of the biggest lies in American history really kind of come here. This is literally where the seeds are planted. Right. And we all know once you plant a seed of doubt in someone's mind, especially America's mind, it's almost impossible to uproot.
First of all, make it clear, the conspiracy, the lies that we're talking about are not that Oswald didn't do it. He did it.
Of course.
He did it. But where history has been changed is, A, his motivation. We knew, I had the paper the very next day, Dallas Morning News. Communist. He was communist.
Of course. And let's just put blame where it really does belong. A guy named Jack Ruby, right? If Jack Ruby, and listen, there are questions we asked, right? What is Oswald doing for 2 years in Russia that nobody knows about? 2 years unaccounted for.
Right.
How does Jack Ruby get past an entire police station full of policemen who at that moment should be guarding this guy like he's the ultimate person to be protected on the earth? And in that moment, Jack Ruby robbed history of the truth, because the only man who knows what's going on is Lee Harvey Oswald. And if today someone came forward and said, you know what, Glenn, I did it. I'm the one who helped Oswald. Here's the proof I have. No one would believe him, right? If he said, here's the video I have, no one would believe him. And immediately, all of Oswald's story began to change by the media, and it began to change because there was a race to tell the story. One of the first books that comes out says JFK said, oh my gosh, I've been shot. And now everyone says, oh my gosh, if he spoke, then he must have been shot by someone else because his throat was out, so there must have been another shooter. Makes logical sense, except for the fact that when you look at Jackie Kennedy, the other Secret Service person in the car, Governor Connolly, you know what they all said? He said nothing. He said nothing. He said nothing. He said nothing. There's a guy also who's here who's photographed with an umbrella, okay? And people go, oh my gosh, he opened the umbrella.
That was a signal.
It's a signal to Oswald. He knew what to do. It's all a big plan. You know what? You're going to love this because you know the fellow lover of history. What he was doing was protesting Neville Chamberlain. He was basically saying Neville Chamberlain used to carry an umbrella. He was an appeaser. He was protesting
This was
JFK.
Josiah Thompson's story. This guy's a pathetic example. At least Josiah had a certain pizzazz. This guy has nothing.
He's in the Posner category, Jim.
Yeah, I agree, Larry.
Absolutely. Got the swastika over there just for good effect.
One of the truest problems that we have when we look at all this, and the reason that it gets so confusing for America, is when the Warren Commission first examined everything, the Kennedy family demanded utter secrecy. The Kennedy family said, do not show the autopsy photos, do not show the autopsy results, do not show the photos of our fallen family member with his head blown off. The problem is America never got to see that he was hit from the back of the head. There's nothing in the front of the head. But as a result of that secrecy, the Kennedy family, I mean, sadly, did a harm that is hard to undo.
Doesn't he understand what he just said? Nothing in the front of the head. It was a blowout at the back of the head, which means a shot from the front. I mean, does he not even understand that he just contradicted his position?
And had there been a shot from behind, his whole face would have been blown out, Jim.
Yes, yes.
Well, how can he be shot from in front, from behind?
Hey, who are we quoting? Who we quoting there?
Frank McGee.
Frank McGee. That's
This
the
is
guy.
incongruous. Yeah.
Incongruous. How can the man be shot from in front, from behind? Yes. Nobody's fool. Frank McGee.
Other shooter was there.
That's what they say.
That's what they say. And
Hey, we seen enough of this guy.
down is where Oswald was.
Yeah, so that's a sixth floor. This is it. This is ground zero. Sixth floor of the book depository. Oswald leans out of there, takes that shot.
Who is this loser?
You know, I'm not sure he's one
He
of
used
the
to do
reporters.
shows.
Brad Metzler.
He used to do shows on the History Channel about lost history, Jim.
On the History Channel.
Yeah.
Wow.
So there you go. But Gary, do we need to keep much more than from this clown?
Right. We've heard enough, Gary.
Yeah.
Enough from him.
Yeah. Come on.
Evicted. Okay. All right. Last shill of the night. We're gonna bust.
I think he's an amoral psychopath. I think he is crude, evil, vicious, vindictive, drunk.
Of course, I like Roger, so I'm not quite prepared to see what we're going to hear.
TV, and today we're sitting down with Roger Stone, the well-known political operative and the author most recently of a fascinating new book, The Man Who Killed Kennedy, The Case Against LBJ. Roger, thanks for talking to us.
Great to be here.
So in the beginning of the book, you say, to delve into the Kennedy assassination, the 50th anniversary is coming up in a few weeks, is to lay down with kooks and nuts. Why are you doing this now?
Well, the whole term conspiracy theorist, that's a pejorative. That's what the mainstream media uses to denigrate anyone who questions the government's version of virtually anything. Look, I don't believe that UFOs landed in Roswell, New Mexico. I don't believe the attack on America and 9/11 was an inside job. I'm really not a conspiracy guy. So I'm not talking conspiracy. I'm talking facts. And I think Lyndon Johnson had unique motive, means, and opportunity to kill John Kennedy. And I think he participated in a plot to do so.
Okay, briefly outline the case against LBJ. And,
Sure.
One of the things that is fascinating about the book is that it's a rich compilation of existing scholarship and kind of resynthesized work about really the, kind of disastrous and awful personal lives, but also political lives of JFK as well as LBJ. You tie LBJ to, 8 murders?
8 murders prior to John F. Kennedy. At least 8, and I'm not including his own sister, who he may have killed.
Okay.
Who's buried without an autopsy.
What's the case against LBJ?
First of all, I do think he's a serial murderer. I think that there is a long trail of murders pertaining to the cover-up of epic corruption. I mean, corruption of biblical proportions. I also think he murdered to cover up vote theft and fraud, with which he first got to the United States Senate.
And this, on your ledger or in your favor, there's no question that he rigged that election.
No question.
The landslide Lyndon election.
Yeah, he steals it with 87 fraudulent votes. People who voted in alphabetical order. Amazingly, they all had the same handwriting and they all signed in the same ink. So I think that he is. I think he's an amoral psychopath. I think he is crude, evil, vicious, vindictive, drunk.
One of the things that is genuinely fascinating about the book is the way that you tie organized crime to Nixon as well, but especially JFK and Lyndon Johnson in various ways. Talk about Malcolm Wallace, because he's the guy that you say actually put the bullet into Kennedy's head.
Sure. Malcolm Wallace is Lyndon Johnson's personal hitman. Malcolm Wallace has gotten a long succession of federal patronage jobs. He works at the Agriculture Department at the behest of Johnson. In 1951, he murders a man named John Kinzer, who is intimately involved with Johnson's sister. Kinzer is blackmailing Johnson. He murders Kinzer in cold blood in front of witnesses. When he's apprehended, he tells the apprehending officer, you can't arrest me. I have to get back to Washington. I work for Senator Johnson. He goes to trial for first-degree murder. He's defended by Lyndon Johnson's personal attorney, John Cofer. He is convicted. He gets a 5-year suspended sentence, and he walks out a free man. He is immediately hired by a company called Temco, a defense contractor, owned by a fellow named H.D. Bird. H.D. Bird also is one of the major financiers of LBJ's career. He also dabbles in real estate. He owns the Texas School Book Depository building.
Talk a little bit about, one of the things that's fascinating about Kennedy assassination theories is that you've always got everybody has to hustle Lee Harvey Oswald off the stage immediately, because Oswald is, an obvious, gunman. He's a Marine. He defects to the Soviet Union. He's a Marxist. He's a pro-Castro guy.
Right.
But he's there, right? He's there that day.
Yes, he's definitely there, but he's the patsy. He's the fall guy. First of all, his communist background is fabricated. We now know, based on the testimony of at least 2 Secret Service agents, that he's trained by the CIA agents. He's trained by the CIA in a defector program. He goes to Russia. He's there. He comes back. He gets his citizenship back like that, even though he's renounced it. The American government lends him $5,000, and they pay for his airfare.
Let's talk a little bit about this. What changes, what changes if we fully accept and kind of internalize the idea that LBJ killed John F. Kennedy? How does that change our understanding of American politics, of history, and of who we are as a nation?
Well, obviously, at this late date, no one is going to try Lyndon Johnson posthumously and convict him of murder. But I think if my book achieves nothing, if it persuades people that what the government tells you cannot be believed, that anything the government tells you needs to be regarded with a certain heavy dose of skepticism, then I will have accomplished something important.
Okay. And this is published by Skyhorse Books, which publishes a wide range of things. Some are in the conspiracy frame. Jesse Ventura is one of their authors. They do other kinds of various things. You're going to be doing more books with them. Talk a little bit about your future.
Yeah, I've got a couple different books in mind. I'd like to do a book on Hillary Clinton. I don't believe Chelsea Clinton. I believe Chelsea Clinton is the daughter of Webb Hubbell and Hillary Clinton, and I'm going to try to prove that in print. Okay, well, that onward and upward.
Yes.
So thank you, Roger Stone. The new book is The Man Who Killed Kennedy, The Case Against LBJ. It is
fellas, I have to apologize because I think I have the wrong video.
I think he's an amoral psychopath.
Well, it's okay.
Yeah, it was okay, but he totally said that 9/11 was a.
Yeah, he said he didn't believe it was an inside job. He didn't believe aliens landed at Roswell. He appears to be wrong on both of those. That doesn't mean he can't be right about the pivotal role of LBJ. In fact, we know he is correct. He seems to be wrong about where he positions Mac Wallace. But, Mac was Lyndon's personal hitman. I mean, this is debatable.
I agree that everything... It was loaded with facts, but why are you going to see? I'm a 100% truther guy. Why do you have to say that 9/11 was a, you believe the government?
Because he's trying to show he's not a conspiracy theorist who believes everything that comes down the pike. I mean, that's all. It's doing that as a political. I don't know that Roger actually has studied 9/11, but he's got a decent book about LBJ as responsible party for. Well, JFK, and he's in the right ballpark. He's got the right target, so I can forgive him having some details not quite right and ignore the fact that he's dismissing about 9/11 and Roswell.
Okay. Well, let's just unpack this for a minute, okay? Couple of points I'd like to make. All right, so he said he doesn't think that 9/11 was an inside job. Okay, well then. to me, 9/11 is the litmus test. Okay, if you're supposed to be this heavy hitter from the Nixon administration forward, well, then 9/11 was right in the prime of your career. Okay, if you can't figure out 9/11, you know, as Bill Belichick says, either you don't know or you don't care. Okay, 9/11, big event. If you can't get 9/11 right, then
you see, as soon as I hear that, I have to dismiss because right there, that's enough for me. It's enough.
9/11 is the litmus test. Okay, if you don't know.
And Roger Stone just failed the hell out of it.
And the other point that he said was, okay, nobody's obviously going to try Lyndon Johnson posthumously at this late date. So what he's telling you there is it's a little Judy Woodish. Okay, well, it happened, but, you know, nobody's going on trial for this. You know, it's a little too late now, but, you know, it was a conspiracy, but, you know, we're not going to take any legal action now because that's just it's too late now.
Well, we can have a mock trial for Lee Oswald. We can have a mock trial for LBJ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Larry, we want your input on this.
Well, you know, Roger, you know, he's made a lot of great contributions, you know, on the LBJ front, you know, and plus, you know, as Don mentioned, you know, he was very well connected to Nixon. And
that's true, but I have to say real quick that there's not one thing that he said that wasn't in Phil Nelson's book.
Yeah, it's true. I agree. Phil, I think Phil is the #1 authority on LBJ.
I believe that too, and I also believe that it's almost like, in a way, he kind of co-opts Phil Nelson a little bit. You know, like
everything that is that's in his book, you know, is covered by Phil. You know, and not only in his first book, but in his second book, the Colossus.
Yeah,
where he goes even further in proving LBJ's complicity and the whole thing there.
You want me to tell you how much further he went? He actually did.
Yeah,
go that far. He did.
But you know, Roger is a very you know, very famous personality. You know, and he is well accepted at conferences and everything. A lot of people, you know, they gravitate around him. You know, Jim has been the conferences where he's been, you know, and he's always, you know, the big star, you know, all the time. So, you know, what can I say?
Yeah, there's a lot of these guys that do the conference circuit that are a little dubious, to say the least.
Yeah, we know 9 out of 10 are working the other side of the street. So mathematically speaking,
I mean, I know a guy that hasn't been invited to a 9/11 conference in over 5 years.
Me too.
I can't remember last night. You know, I organized in Vancouver hearings in 2012.
Well, you had the Santa Barbara conference.
Yeah, right. But that's JFK. We're talking 9/11.
Yeah, the last time I was invited anywhere was the conspiracy conference in 2013.
That's when you read Richard Gage, huh?
Yeah, Richard, he was in the front row for my presentation, and that was the last time there was a conspiracy conference.
Was he taking notes?
Copious notes. Copious notes.
You know, when I spoke at North Dakota, I was introduced by Judge Thunheim on JFK, and Thunheim took copious notes the whole time.
Well, he should. He was you know, the top gun at the ARRB, Jim.
Of course, Larry. But he still maintains that the Warren Commission basically got it right.
I know.
Which is incredible.
I think. Do you think that Douglas Horne and him might have had a falling out?
Well, I would be interested in involving Doug. We ought to have Doug on to talk about Thunheim and others he worked with at the ARRB as our guest.
Doug will never do that.
Yeah, Doug retired, I think.
Doug retired. Doug retired. He's told every JFK researcher.
I know. He says, don't call me, don't text me, don't email me.
I'm a huge Doug Horne fan too, and
because of that, he just said, you know what, you bunch of, you know what?
Yeah, you bunch of idiots. Yeah, he says, you bunch of idiots. It's been proven. I wrote 5 volumes. You know, I've got so many videos on YouTube. If you can't understand it, you know, that's not my problem.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. All right, quick question.
I've got them right here at hand. I've got all 5 volumes right here. And you notice there are lots of tabs in this book. Lots of tabs.
Looks like
there's good stuff in there.
That's right. I have yellow highlights, throughout mine.
Absolutely. All right. Last week, fellas, we I think we skipped over the significance of something, and so I'm going to go ahead and
certificates.
No, if you remember, we were talking about George Bush. All right. So this is a funeral, and we got.
No, you mentioned it. You showed Bush there in the back on the steps. Yeah. It doesn't look right. That looks a little strange, like they might have messed with his face, Photoshopishly.
Yeah, that's not as convincing as the one in front of the TSB.
Right.
He looks like
he's done something to the head, Larry.
He looks like they cut his neck off, like he has cancer.
Could be. Yeah, it could be.
Look, you can see all that.
I think it was Bush, but they distorted the head.
Yeah, that's possible.
Yeah, it looks like the face got,
manipulated.
Something. Yeah, it's kind of a crude editing job.
Yeah. So Don, you got something for us?
Yeah. You want to play a YouTube clip for me, Gary?
Yeah.
I'll put the link here in the chat. And
hit pause, Dr. Fetzer.
Okay. We can't see it, Gary. We can't see it.
Okay, hang on.
Okay, so this is Alex Jones talking about this is Tommy Robinson that's been going on this week. So this has been a big shill fest. The last minute of this is all commercials, so if we get through 3-4 minutes of this will be fine.
Okay, here we go.
Yep.
Tommy Robinson, frequent guest of this show, has been disappeared, given 13-month sentence in 1 hour, and there's a national ban on talking about it. And I've talked to scores of reporters and others who are afraid to even come on air. Fox News then talked to his lawyer, who said, I can't tell you, I'll be arrested. What was Tommy Robinson reporting on? Giant confirmed child kidnapping rings nationwide. Now, you're watching us on TV, you can see this. DrudgeReport.com. Oh, look, he's got articles about Tommy Robinson, activist Tommy Robinson arrested outside UK court, jailed for 13 months on the same day. Third link, judge orders media blackout. Boom, Fox News. Fox News, folks. Something has gone wrong. It seems you clicked on a bad link and stumbled upon a 404 error. But when you see somebody like Tommy Robinson, who 11 years ago was the first person to expose Muslim grooming and mass sex trafficking rings.
Yeah, this was basically the story of how political dissidents who may commit thought crime are now being kidnapped off the streets of Britain. There was an individual who was quite prominent in the anti-Islamic extremism movement who was going to attend a Draw Mohammed cartoon contest last week. The police rearrested him for a previous charge which he had already been released for in order to prevent him from attending this conference, literally just so he wouldn't offend Muslims. So that story, we've done a report on that outside Big Ben. That's a massive story. It's going to be up tomorrow before the show.
There have been slave caravans and slave women and slave children being sold for 6,000 plus years of recorded history in North Africa, in the Middle East, and in Central Asia. By the way, there are other cultures were selling slaves as well. It's just those cultures never came up to the 21st century. So I have a whole stack of mainstream British news, after 11 years of them covering it up, having to admit that indeed every major town has thousands of little girls and some boys trained, recruited, and then put into sex slavery by age 9, 10, 11. And if the parents, the poor parents, get uppity and say no, the police come and set them up and arrest them and have CPS, Child Protective Services, take their children. They're now having parliamentary hearings on this so they can cover it up for decades But because of Tommy Robinson breaking the ice, blowing a hole in the lie, being put in prison for a year 5 years ago over this, and not shutting up, others had the courage to go public. So the pedophile rings that run England, that's mainstream news, are really angry. So now they've ordered in the courts that no one report on the trials, period. Don't even say they exist. And so Tommy Robinson was arrested on Friday. He already had a suspended sentence from last year after serving 3 months in prison. He had 13 months of it suspended as long as he, quote, wouldn't go into trials and cover them live, which he'd done before, like press should be able to do until a few years ago anywhere in the Western world. They have to protect pedophilia. You can go to any other trial you want. So he just went outside one. I watched the whole live stream after it was archived and just said they're having a grooming trial here. Didn't say the details, any of that. Now, this is all confirmed. We reported on it Friday and Saturday. Fox News has a big article that details it. It's up on Infowars.com because they removed the Fox News article. It just disappeared. Not corrected. The one that Drudge is linked to, it's just gone. Fox News confirms Tommy Robinson sentenced to 13 months for reporting on pedophile grooming trial. Here's the Fox News article that's been deleted. The link that Drudge is linked to has been deleted. Right-wing activist Tommy Robinson reportedly jailed after filming outside child grooming trial. This is Fox News, confirming everything we already told you. But it says, it's shocking. His lawyer isn't allowed to talk to us. He says this is a police state. My own listeners yesterday afternoon, I was shooting live reports. They were like, Alex, there's not a ban on reporting on Tommy Robinson. And they started commenting in the feeds going, oh, we apologize, there is. Oh my God, you can do that in England? Yeah.
All right, talk to us, Don.
But of course there was a ban on it. I mean, I've been following this today, and of course the fact that it was involving Muslims is a major aspect that's being suppressed here. In fact, the mayor of London is suppressing the violent crimes being committed by Muslims because, in part, because he's one himself.
Yeah, okay, now all right, so this is going to take a little unpacking, all right? And this does actually tie back to the JFK assassination, and I will lay that out over the next few weeks. We're going to start with Tommy Robinson and Alex Jones, though. Okay, the level of shilling here is really off the charts, okay? So you've got shill Alex Jones, and we've got this fraudulent martyr in Tommy Robinson. Okay, I got a little PowerPoint here. I will, let's see,
And what makes him fraudulent, Don? I'm fascinated.
Okay, so we have a breakdown here. We'll do a screen share here. Can you guys see the PowerPoint now?
Yes, you can.
Go full screen.
Yep, I will. There we go.
There you go.
Okay, so here's our boy Tommy Robinson, and this is his Wikipedia entry. So his real name is Stephen Christopher Yaxley Lennon. Goes by the pseudonym Tommy Robinson. Previously, he's been known as Andrew McMaster and Paul Harris. And he's a so-called far-right activist who served as spokesman and leader of the English Defense League, from which he resigned in 2013. Yeah. In October of 2013, he resigned from the EDL. He's currently serving a 13-month prison sentence for contempt of court after he did the Facebook Live stream outside the Muslim grooming trial.
Let me ask you this, Don.
Yep.
You just want to show the defendants these trials are presumably public. I mean, it should be a matter of public record. But the Crown is trying to suppress the fact that these are Muslims, and therefore they don't want their faces to be shown because it would be obvious to the public.
Well, there's part of that's going on, and part of it is has to do with these were minors that were under that were the victims, and and part of this was nobody else was out there filming it, but our boy Tommy was, and he'd already had a suspended sentence to not do this sort of thing. So let's move to the next slide here. This is Tommy's record. 2005, 12 months for assault. 2010, arrested for public order offense. 2011, convicted for football hooliganism. You know, he gets drunk at the soccer game. 2011, breaching bail. 2011, convicted for assault. 2011, jailed for a rooftop protest in Switzerland. Jailed for traveling under a false passport.
I hate to say it, Don, but a lot of these look like contrived offenses to me, like they're trying to target the guy and smear him.
Well, we'll see. Okay, jailed for mortgage fraud. Okay, now I haven't looked into that one at all. But in any event, this man's had any number of scrapes with the law. So you would think if a guy like this got in front of a judge, they may yank his suspended sentence and throw him in the cooler. You know, okay, so why exactly was Tommy there in the first place? So what's going on, all right? So basically, we now have 3 million Muslims in England. 25 years ago, we had 950,000, which is a lot, you know, but it's ballooned up to 3 million. And these Muslims they've imported are, you know, they're Arabs. They're low IQ beasts from the desert, basically, that are unassimilable into modern civilization. So it's causing a huge problem. So there's massive public unrest with all these Muslims. White people are now a minority in London. In the city itself, white people are now a minority. And that's how you've got this Muslim mayor, Sadiq Khan. And so there's a lot of outrage bubbling underneath the surface here. So we've got to have, so the people are looking for a hero. We need somebody to stand up to this Muslim onslaught. Well, enter Tommy Robinson. But there's a catch. Gary, ring the bell. Yeah, that's right. He's Jewish. So, and he admits it on Twitter.
Yeah, but see, I don't draw the same inferences you do, Don. I mean, the fact the guy's Jewish doesn't tell me diddly about his politics. It gives me a category, but not everything true of the category generally is true of the individual members.
Well, we got a few more slides to go here yet, so
hang on.
Hang on. So here Tommy admits he's Jewish up here, and then he stands with Israel. I don't care how many people on the far left and far right shout me down for it. I'm an unapologetic Israel supporter. And then this is a little tweet from Israel. This has honestly been the best and most fascinating trip of my life. And here he is with
at the Wailing Wall.
This is when he was at the Wailing Wall there. And then this is the English Defense League. So he's with the rabbi. And this is when he went to Israel. He met Kay Wilson. She has some role with like tourist relations or something, I believe. And then here's down here. We see the English Defense League. The true English will never abandon Israel. So
the English Defense League is actually the English Israel Defense League.
Yes. Yeah. So they don't do much defending of England, but they do a lot of defending of Israel.
Kind of like us.
Yeah. And then here's Tommy wearing his Mossad t-shirt.
So is Tommy Mossad?
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing that Tommy won't talk about in all this Muslim problem is how did all these Muslims actually get into England in the first place? Did they let themselves in? What force got them in there? Oh, well, when you look under the rock, what do you find? Barbara Lerner Specter. Europe has not yet learned how to be
Why do we have these common grammatical errors? Jews admit they are. That should be THEY''RE.
Well, I'll talk to Scotty and get him to clean his spelling up. Jews are going to be at the center of that. It's a huge transformation for Europe to make. They are now going into multicultural mode, and Jews will be resented because of our leading role. But without that leading role and without that transformation, Europe will not survive.
I think it's more like the other way around.
Yeah. Well, Europe, under the Muslim invasion, the objective is our guy George Soros says, our plan treats the protection of refugees as the objective and national borders is the obstacle. Jewish billionaire openly advocating the eradication of European borders to accommodate hundreds of thousands of non-Europeans. He would.
There was a report about Soros advocating the dissolution of the borders in European countries on national news tonight.
Yeah. So George Soros is basically calling for the genocide of white Europeans.
Yeah, he's a very bad.
Yeah.
Lots of words that follow.
Yeah, he's financed. Take them down, NOLA. The people that got all the airtime.
That's exactly it. So Tommy Robinson is a guy put up by World Jewry to deflect the heat on these on the Muslims. It's okay to blame Muslims for all this, but don't blame the Jews who actually brought them into your country in the first place.
And who are manipulating the situation to promote their own interests.
Correct. Well, yeah, the Jewish interest is to exterminate white Europeans.
Yeah. Hey, Larry,
the Jewish interest seems to be to dilute all other cultures with this kind of multiracialism. So roughly everyone turns out to be sort of light brown in color, and the Jewish race emerges to lead them, very much as Charles Manson wanted a war between the blacks and the whites, and he believed that because the blacks were stronger, they'd prevail. But because they were actually also dumber, they'd need leadership, and he'd provide that by coming out from the mountains to lead them.
So, all right, I have just a couple of screens. I made a few scans of the magazine, and come to find out that you can't put that in a PowerPoint. So I'm just going to go ahead and play the pictures real quick. Now, this is the one we were talking about where they have book out. And then, oh yeah, this I wanted to talk about. It's a little out of order. What it does say at the top of this, he says, bumbling bureaucracy responsible and left JFK a target. All right.
Nothing bumbling about 15 indication of Secret Service complicity and setting him up for the hit. That was very meticulously planned.
Yeah. Can you read that for just a couple of paragraphs? Can you see it? Or is it too small?
For decades, historians will analyze a Warren Commission report down to the last tragic detail, but one question will glare forever. How did it happen that a known psychotic, a man with a Marxist bent, who had defected to the USSR and who would work for the U.S. in the U.S. on behalf of fair play for Castro's Cuba, could possibly have been allowed to go unwatched during President Kennedy's visit to Dallas? Even worse, how is an individual with a fat FBI dossier permitted access with a gun to the Texas School Book Depository, commanding as it did within easy range the scheduled route of the presidential motorcade? All hooey. This is just, an apology for the Warren report claiming they were mucking it up like on 9/11. It was claimed failure of communication between the CIA and the FBI allowed the attack by 19 Islamic terrorists under the command of Osama bin Laden off in a cave in Afghanistan to take place. It's just the usual muck coming from the responsible agencies.
But they use it all, even in Puerto Rico. It's all bureaucracy bumbling. That is the reason why we can't get anything done.
Now that you mentioned Puerto Rico, Gary, because I wanted to talk about this.
Yes, sir.
Eventually, because as you guys know, you probably read in the newspapers, the Harvard study that came out, which found out that almost 5,000 people died in Puerto Rico as a result of Hurricane Maria. And I just wanted to mention that Jim and I don't know if Gary was involved, that we did a couple of shows post Maria when I was in Puerto Rico, and
I still have
reports about what was going on there. And my father had, who goes to the VA, right next to the Veterans Administration building, there is the forensic building that deals with all the deaths and everything. And he had told me, and I had passed this information on to Jim and Gary about the quantity of people that were there claiming bodies that had already been, that people that had already died in hospitals as a result of electricity and the basic necessities not being available. And now, and at the time, the government of Puerto Rico had only been claiming 50 deaths as a result of the storm. And Donald Trump went to Puerto Rico and said, oh, you know, you guys should be proud of yourselves. There was only 50 or 60 deaths here compared to Katrina with 2,000. Well, now, you know, and as a result of the study, we were the ones that were right, Jim, when I was reporting to you and reporting to our audience about what was really happening in Puerto Rico at the time.
Yeah, under real duress.
Didn't W say something like that to the guy in charge of Katrina reconstruction, doing a great job? What was his name? It was awful.
Brown.
Yeah, Mike Brown.
They were being miserable, just as in Puerto Rico. We got about 5 minutes, Larry. Why don't you continue with this theme as we conclude the show today?
Yeah, well, we, you know how many times as when I was there and everything and all the suffering that I witnessed, and which to me, just remembering, you know, the whole situation there is very traumatic to me. And, you know, I just think that, you know, what we went through there, and you know, because I was, like I said, I was giving you guys reports, you know, from the beginning. In fact, when I was able to finally get through to you and Jim and Gary, you guys know, you know, what we were going through there and how traumatic it was.
Oh yeah,
seeing all the suffering and seeing the gas lines and seeing, you know, we had a curfew, and then you know, as FEMA and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers dragged their feet, you know, in trying to reestablish communications and trying to reestablish the electrical grid that was completely wiped out 100%, and how chaos was prevalent, you know, in the streets.
That's right. It's part of it. It's all part of it to allow the meltdown to occur. You want the meltdown to occur.
Supermarkets, you know, the lines just to get something to eat and everything. I was a witness to all this, you know, but, you know, let's go on to something else because I have a very short clip here that I wanted to
Well, do it, Larry. Do it now because you were almost to the end of the show. Go ahead and do your clip.
Yeah. Let me cue this up for you guys because I think this is very significant. It's new stuff. Let me see if I can find this actually.
Okay. All right. Look, while Larry's looking for that, I just have a couple of slides to show real fast.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Let me see if I can find it.
Well, I've completed everything I wanted to do. All right. Now this is in the same magazine. They were pouring it on hardcore. All right. So this is the one where we had John Connolly taking a look frame by frame to basically convince him of what he saw. Now, so they go, you know, through each frame. Connolly's looking at them, and he isolates between this frame. It's where he was shot. Blah blah blah. However, we've got a man here. The rebuttal of a protagonist of the one bullet verdict, and there you go. He completely disagrees with it, and there's our man right there. Talk about in charge of single bullet theory.
Let's go with Larry here for the finish. Gary, good job.
Give me a couple. I'm trying to find the clip. All of a sudden, it's.
You want me to put it on pause?
Yes, please. Okay, I found this clip watching. Let me give an introduction here, a short introduction. If you've been a biology student, one of the first things that you learn in biology is about Rachel Carson. Okay, now Rachel Carson wrote Silent Spring, which was an indictment of the companies that produced DDT and other pesticides and how it was affecting the environment. Now, before that, she had written a couple of books about the sea and about, because she was a marine biologist, but then she was an excellent writer, Jim. And she was able to put in writing a lot of her ideas that were in a way that people could understand. Okay, now this clip that I'm going to show is right before the publication of her book. Now, what happened here is that excerpts of her book had been published in the New Yorker magazine, and the series of excerpts reached the people, and they started to take notice, and so this is just a portion of a video that I just recorded off the screen from Netflix. I've watched this. I'm a very big fan of Rachel Carson. Okay, and it's very interesting because it has to do with JFK, and I'll just play it real fast here, and let you guys comment if you will. Okay, am I? You guys see that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Under the eaves and between the shingles of the roofs,
Turn up the volume.
white granular powder could be seen. Some weeks earlier, this powder had been dropped like snow upon the roofs of the lawns, the fields, and the streams. No witchcraft, no enemy action had snuffed out life in this stricken world.
Is this the chemtrails of her time?
Themselves.
Yeah.
She creates an image of silence. What would it be like if you woke up in the morning and you went outside and instead of hearing birds chirp or sing, you heard nothing? And that's so amazingly powerful, right? And just, it stops you in your tracks.
In the zealous quest for mastery, Carson argued, synthetic pesticides had been used indiscriminately, excessively, heedlessly, upsetting the delicate balance of nature and putting all life at risk.
She felt that proponents of widespread pesticide use were conducting an experiment with life itself without having done adequate testing or research to determine what the consequences might be. And that the citizenry weren't being informed because the proponents of pesticides weren't telling them only one side of the story and the one that benefited their own interests. And so all of these things are part of the Cold War consensus by which Americans lived. The benevolence of corporations, the authority of science. Well, Carson's challenging all of those things.
The furor arose even before the second and third installments of Silent Spring hit the newsstands. The New Yorker was deluged with letters. So too was the USDA. Most of those who wrote, an agency spokesman told the New York Times, expressed horror and amazement that the use of such toxic chemicals was even permitted.
To raise the level of awareness of the general public of all of these chemical applications and why we need to think about their implications. People were deeply moved and frightened by what she said.
Scientists for the chemical industry and the USDA were incensed by Carson's assertions. What, they wondered publicly, was the death of a songbird against the possibility of ending malaria or world hunger? As one industry chemist put it, DDT alone has saved as many human lives over the past 15 years as all the wonder drugs combined.
The proponents of pesticides argued that you have to take risks to go forward. That's very much part of our scientific technological culture.
They saw themselves as doing something in the higher good. They were fostering human development. They were killing plagues. They were making the world a better place.
Carson herself acknowledged there was this benefit through the use of pesticides. But the whole point of her argument is that there's been a kind of an assumption and a rush. The benefits were obvious, so people rushed to take advantage of those benefits. But there were these other problems that were maybe not as obvious, but actually might outweigh the benefits.
By August, with the publication of the book still more than a month away, the controversy over Silent Spring had reached the nation's capital, and a special science advisory committee had been convened to review all federal policies on pesticides. On August 28th, the subject even found its way into one of the president's regular televised press conferences.
There appears to be growing concern among scientists as to the possibility of dangerous long-range side effects from the widespread use of DDT and other pesticides. Have you considered asking the Department of Agriculture or the Public Health Service to take a closer look at this?
Yes, and I know that they already are, particularly, of course, Ms. Carson's book, but they are examining the matter.
I just want to stop here for a minute here, Jim, because I think that JFK is being extremely coy, you know, in acknowledging the problem here, and where he's obviously saying, look, you know, we know about this whole situation, and it's sort of like, you know, we don't want to let the cat out of the bag, okay? So
I suspect you're right, given his demeanor here and the way he was so cautious. He's normally very relaxed in speaking, but in this case, not very constrained.
Yes, because look who he's taken on.
Imagine how worried the people who made these pesticides were. When President Kennedy said, yeah, we're going to look into this, we're going to reach in to the private sector and see if we need to regulate these products in a different way, that was a threat. That's a threat to the bottom line. That's a threat to the business that these companies were in.
They formed essentially a war council to get together and develop a propaganda campaign to discredit Carson, to discredit the science in her book, and to defend their practices.
Right. Rachel Carson was a conspiracy theorist of her time.
As you know, I think that we can add to the long list of enemies that JFK had before the assassination, you know, all these corporations, you know, these companies that produce all these pesticides. And I think you mentioned some of those the other day when I spoke to you, Jim.
I think that's an impeccable point, Larry. We need to pursue it. I'd also like for us to invite someone who's an expert on chemtrails, because I think they're a modern variation, potentially even more threatening than DDT and the other pesticides that preoccupied her at the time.
Yeah, well, you know, something that you know, and what impresses me is that JFK was so informed on this problem, Jim. You know, and it's.
Well, remember, he was a speed reader. He was a voracious reader.
Yeah, and that he would say, "Hey, you know, I'm all aware of Miss Carson's book," you know, and
sure.
And the book
he already had conversation with her in private.
Hasn't even been published yet.
Yeah, you got it. Agreed.
No. I think Raphael is the only one to talk to when it comes to chemicals, to chemtrails. She is the authority.
So there's just another tidbit, another possibility, you know, another enemy.
I agree, Larry. I think it's a great take on your part. Good catch. Gary, I think you want to take us out.
Yeah, it's time. I think we had a good show. This is JFK show number 197. All right, we'll see you next week, guys. Appreciate all your input.
Adios, amigo.